A very interesting case that got sent to me by one of the many wonderful members of our vivabarneslaw.locals.com community. Every now and again, I establish relationships, friendships with some of the members, and they become amazing sources of stuff that I might otherwise not have read about or might have, not known existed. Such as this one, which came out of Michigan yesterday. Now, many of you know, I do not believe that I've ever been sponsored by Kalshi. I wouldn't mind because, it's something that I do use. Although listening to Steve-O on Joe Rogan, it is a futures prediction market. Some people would consider it gambling, and it certainly could lead to problems if you have a propensity or a weakness for those types of things. I occasionally use it for UFC and occasionally use it for politics when there are certain things that I believe are going to happen because of what I believe to be my more accurate assessment of the state of politics, one of which was, Robert Barnes and I talked about it a lot, the pardons was a great time where you could have invested in your prediction of what was going to happen in politics. Now, market predictions are different than gambling. And whether you agree with the distinction or not, roulette is gambling because there's no strategy, it's pure odds, and you do not control or have any predictive element on the outcome. It could be black forever. It could be red forever. As a matter of fact, it'll flip back and forth. You don't control the outcome. It's random. That's the definition of gambling. Markets prediction is a little bit different. At least, I would say definitionally. Who's going to win an election? It's not something that's beyond control, and it's not something that is purely random. And it's something that if you understand things properly, you can predict outcomes. And if you believe your own assessment, there are now platforms that allow you to invest in your own intellectual assessments of outcomes. And had you followed, let's just take Richard Barris, People's Pundit, his advice during the 2024 elections, well, you could have bet on the specific electoral college outcome of the 2024 elections, and you could have made some sweet, sweet dough. You could have bit within the window and made some sweet, sweet dough. Go back and look, by the way. I predicted it to one electoral college, and it was only because I didn't realize one of the states, I want to say New England, but it might have been Maine or I think it was Maine. I didn't realize that a small state like Maine actually had a division for its electoral college votes, so I didn't factor that into the equation. I was off by one electoral college in my prediction of how 2024 was going to go down. Well, it seems that an argument is being made here that Kalshi is using its platform for prediction markets to circumvent laws that regulate sports betting. And this is coming out of Bridge, Michigan. Michigan sues prediction market Kalshi, alleging illegal sports betting. And this is the one where even if you don't like the logic or the rationale, you're going to understand it. Because if there are laws that regulate sports betting, whether or not sports betting should not be treated like roulette gambling, and whether or not you don't think it's as predictive or an intellectual exercise as political predictive outcomes, if there are laws governing sports betting and Kalshi is bypassing them, you can understand where Michigan is coming from. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel is asking a judge to shut down a prediction market platform she says is illegally offering sports betting to residents. Tuesday, she filed a lawsuit in Ingham County Circuit, yada, 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 against Kalshi, a company that allows people to trade contracts based on the likely outcome of events. Nessel alleges that Kalshi operates as an online sports betting platform without being properly licensed. It certainly does offer options for sports betting. Corporations cannot circumvent state gaming laws, said Nessel in a press statement. My office will hold those who sidestep Michigan consumer protection accountable and ensure that betting in our state remains lawful, fair, subject to the oversight our residents expect and deserves. The complaint alleges that Kalshi is operating as a sports betting platform, which violates the state's Lawful Sports Betting Act, requiring such platforms to be licensed through the Michigan Gaming Control Board. The state is seeking an order declaring that Kalshi is a sports betting app and a permanent injunction to stop the company from operating in the state. Here's where, even as a lawyer, I'll understand Michigan's argument, not agree with it entirely, but if there are laws that apply to sports betting in the state, if I'm not trying to ask for more than I'm entitled to. I ask that Kalshi either be required to get licensed under the Lawful Sports Betting Act, or that it no longer offer sports betting as markets on the platform. Look, to shut down the entire platform if it's offering predictive markets for the midterms, if all it's doing is also offering UFC fight outcomes for tomorrow night. Stay tuned for my picks. Kalshi operates a so-called prediction market through which residents of the state of Michigan can engage in unlicensed gambling under the guise of trading event contracts. The market is an online trading platform through which users may wager on the likelihood of a sports-related occurrence, according to the lawsuit. It's not a gambling website. I mean, it could be used by people to gamble. There are certain elements in there. There are certain markets that are, I don't know if it's beyond the prediction of like roulette, but I forget which one of these platforms had like markets. What's going to be the average temperature for New York City for the month of February? What's going to be the high temperature in Los Angeles on March 6th as of 6 o'clock, as determined by the National Weather Board, whatever. So certain elements of it can be certainly used for gambling, and you can use it to lose a lot of money if you have no self-control and get into that. But if it were me, and my argument would be, if your issue is the sports element, we won't do sports in your state. You don't get to prohibit markets for items that are clearly not gambling, and or just get licensed in that state for whatever that's worth, or for however you do that, and then you can operate lawfully in the state of Michigan. We'll see where it goes. But I am curious. I thought initially when I got sent that link that it was going to be alleging that Kalshi wasn't honoring the description for the payouts of the markets, because they have this concept called rule suck, which means that according to the rules, the outcome might not be that which we see in reality. There were some election outcomes where they were determining it not by the actual results, but by how news outlets were reporting the results. But no, they're offering sports markets in Michigan, and that's governed by a specific sports gambling law, and Kalshi's not licensed, and they need to get licensed. Well, that was the non-political story of the day.